Once again, we'd like to welcome you in today's edition of The Morning Call. Opposition parties in Comoros say the forthcoming presidential elections could be marred with repression and vote rigging. The Union of the Opposition Alliance has pledged to put up a brave fight with a united front against the incumbent President Azali Assoumani, who is seeking another term in office. It also says it will deploy surveillance committees to monitor the elections in polling stations all across the country. Leader of the Opposition Alliance, Mohamed Ali Soilihi, recently called on President Assoumani to step aside, accusing him of attempting to rig the elections. But according to the incumbent leader, the opposition has nothing to be afraid of.
To fully understand where the opposition fears come from, we are online with Rashadi Abdallah, spokesperson for the Opposition Alliance. Rashadi Abdallah, hello. 48 hours before the presidential election, the 12 opposition candidates say they fear massive fraud in favor of the outgoing president Azali Assoumani. On what do they base their fears on?
Effectivement, les Comoriens ont peur qu'il y ait des fraudes.
Indeed. Comorians are afraid. They are afraid that there will be fraud insofar as all states' instruments are used in favor of the outgoing president, Azali Assoumani, but also the election monitoring bodies, namely the supposedly independent Electoral Commission. The only concerned members of the current regime. But also the measures that have been taken, including the exclusion and the zone procedure that has been established to prevent journalists from doing their job of covering the elections, suggests that the current government is preparing for a system of fraud. That is, in order to win the election, they have already know they have lost in advance for them.
And Rashadi, have you taken any steps to counter this alleged fraud which you suspect the authorities are planning?
Effectivement, nous avons déjà mis en place un certain nombre de...
We have already put in place a number of on-the-spot control procedures, and as of Sunday, we'll have elements that will be there very early in polling stations. That is in order to prevent fraud from occurring in the early hours. Of course, in these last hours of propaganda, rumors are running high of a regime that will try to avoid as much access to the opposition before a certain time. But they can be sure that all the measures have been taken to face any attempt at fraud in these elections.
Dernière question, Monsieur Abdallah. Est-ce que vous avez un
Finally, Mr. Abdallah, do you have a message to convey in particular to the African Union, which has deployed an electoral observation mission?
Vous me permettez tout d'abord de lancer un appel pressant aux Comoriens.
First of all, allow me to make an urgent appeal to Comorians. We ask them to vote, not to be intimidated, not to be threatened, because only the people will win in these elections. With regard to the African Union, the country is at a crucial stage in its history, and it's not in the interest of the African Union to allow Comoros to sink into chaos and anarchy, which is to be expected in the event that the current regime attempts to divert the will of the people. But I'm also convinced that the current government will become aware of the consequences that this may have in order to avoid complications other than those we are currently experiencing. We therefore ask the African Union to support us, as it has always done, and to help the Comorian people to emerge as winners in these elections. Thank you, Rashadi Abdallah, for having agreed to answer our questions on the fears of the Comorian opposition a few hours before the presidential election.